Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for today's webinar, EDI Strategic Impact of EDI on Modern Supply Chain Operations. This is being sponsored by EDI. My name is Jim Lucy, and I'm the Editor-in-Chief for Electrical Wholesaling and Electrical Marketing. Before we get started, let me explain to you how you can participate in today's presentation. First of all, if you have any technical difficulties during the session, please just put your question in the questions window at the bottom. Our technical expert will be there to help you out. We recommend disabling any pop-up blocking software or extensions in your browser, as they can cause issues with the webinar player. Additionally, we welcome your questions during today's event. We can during the Q&A session that follows the main presentation, but please do feel free to send in your questions at any time. To do so, simply type your questions into the Ask a Question window on the side of your screen and then hit that Submit button. Also be aware that today's session is being recorded and will be available on Electrical Wholesaling's website, www.eweb.com. It will be available within the next week, and you'll be notified by email when that archive is available. And now, please enjoy today's presentation by our all-star panel, being sponsored by IDEA.
Welcome to the EDI Roundtable, the strategic impact of EDI on modern supply chain operations. I'm Mike Wentz, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at IDEA, and the moderator for today's roundtable. We've assembled several top experts to discuss the strategic role EDI plays in optimizing operations, enhancing data accuracy, and minimizing manual processes. In the last 5 years, digitalization and digital integration have been hot topics in our industry, but it actually started a long time ago. Towards the end of World War II, many experts believe that data interchange actually started with the Berlin airlift. Later on then in the 60s, the DuPont Corporation perfected communication via EDI with their tanker ships. Then in the 70s, ANSI X12 as the first standard was developed. After that, in the 80s, the electrical industry adopted EDI Pro as their standard. And that really led, at that time, to many industries, several industries actually adopting EDI, such as the food industry, the auto industry, and the electrical industry. And in part, the reason why the electrical industry was an early adopter was because the NAED organization created the DCI number, which was a standard numbering system in the 60s. Which later led to what we know today as the UPC code. So here we are 40 years after the early adoption of our industry's EDI standards, and we're ready now to talk to our experts about the current state of EDI adoption in the industry. So let's first meet our panel, and we'll start with a brief introduction. Anne, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Anne Sadlowski. I work for Siemens. I've been in EDI for 29 years at Siemens, training and onboarding for EDI with our distributors and customers.
Thank you, Anne. Scott.
Hello, my name is Scott Bausch. I'm with Legrand in the electrical division. I'm the Senior Vice President of Revenue Operations and Strategic Accounts. Been with Legrand 20 years in various different roles, and looking forward to the session today.
And Phil.
Hello. Hello. Phil Hale with Elliott Electric Supply. I've been with Elliott Electric Supply for almost 38 years. I'm the Chief Information Officer, and I've been working with EDI since the late 80s.
And Tom Guzik.
Hi, Tom Guzik. I am the Director of Digital Integrations for IDEA. I've been in the electrical industry probably about 30-some years, having worked for 2 electrical manufacturers prior to coming to IDEA. I started EDI in the chemical industry, so I've seen how both industries work with their EDI. Definitely, I would say electrical is farther ahead than a lot of the other verticals. Again, welcome.
Well, thank you, panelists. And what are the most significant benefits your organization has seen from automating transactions through EDI?
Well, we've seen, overall implementing EDI transactions, the obvious reasons like cost and error reduction by replacing the manual processing, I mean, the biggest benefit is just the overall collaboration with our trading partners to, seamlessly process documents in a more timely manner, more real-time access to data for our trading partners, things like that.
And Phil, from a distributor perspective, what do you see as the most significant benefits?
For us, it's the reduction of errors and automation. There's still, even today, there's a lot of discussions about, process automation, and that's something that EDI has been able to do since since we've been using it, from the late 80s. And that's everything from handling invoices and purchase orders. When our payables only has to deal with 20% of the invoices we receive, manually. For us, that's a huge benefit in itself.
Scott, what are the ways the EDI has helped your company reduce transaction cost and eliminate inefficiencies?
Yeah, and similar, the big benefits are, as you state, efficiency and reduction in transaction costs, reduced error rate, more real-time data. The big value here for us is, the data entry portion of the jobs in our organization and the industry. If we can move those to more value add services and solutions for our customers, we're all going to benefit and everyone's going to have a better service. So that ability to automate and reduce manual touch and reduce some of the challenges we have with that type of order entry process or that kind of data transmission process, and move to EDI is incredibly valuable for us as a manufacturer and incredibly valuable for our customers that we service.
Phil, and what are some of the key challenges that you believe are preventing broader adoption of EDI in the electrical industry today?
For me, what I see is when the industry adopted EDI Pro, and that was years ago, that was a huge step forward, because what it did is it standardized the transactions between manufacturers and distributors. Everything from dealing with SBAs, POs, invoices, shipping acknowledgments, PO acknowledgments, I keep going. But it's when we had that standard, everything was great, and it streamlined the process. The problem is, since then, the transactions have changed. We need additional information. We need more attributes on the items to make it easier for our systems to consume and know how to handle it. So for me, the biggest challenge is for us to continue to make improvements to the standards, and also to look at additional documents, everything from RGAs, dealing with chargebacks. I mean, there's ways to do it, but EDI can be, the documents are there. We just need standards on how to transmit those documents back and forth.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Phil, because one of the things that we've seen, and Tom, maybe you can add to this, is that it's been a sort of a standard number of transaction types or document types that we've seen adopted, and there are many, many more that could be adopted that would also save the industry. Tom, what do you see as the most common documents that we see coming through the network?
Well, your basic supply chain things like your purchase order, your invoice, ASNs, purchase order acknowledgments. So those are the standards. If anybody's really doing EDI with their trading partners, they're going to be doing those. But like to follow on what Phil was saying, there are so many more that could be done. I mean, just adding the EDI 820, the remittance advice to your process. I mean, I've seen companies reduce their costs tremendously. Something that would have taken 4 days to process, invoices from a large trading partner can be handled within half an hour, because this just adds so much more efficiencies. And yeah, I mean, the standard set of EDI Pro transactions, it really hasn't changed. There hasn't been anything added in quite a few years. Now, I do understand that we do have a standards group that will be looking into those other transactions. And I would expect shortly where you'll be hearing, outreaches for what transactions are people really looking to standardize within the EDI Pro, because there's going to be mutual benefits between electrical distributors and manufacturers, and going through that process of doing that subset of X12 and creating the guideline will really have a more impact on everybody.
Yeah. Scott, is there much conversation at Legrand about, trying to increase the number of transaction types that you've automated?
The volume of the transactions and the number of transaction types, it's been an ongoing journey for many, many years. We connect to a lot of different channel partners and end customers, and it's in some ways it's the transaction capabilities and how many different transactions we can do, but the other ways that there's a challenge is the actual connectivity to customers. There's a lot of different IT teams that need to talk and make connection to move this forward. So I think it is incumbent on the industry and important for all of the players to try to expand on the transactions, but it's also important to grow the volume of transactions within the sets that we're currently doing. And some of that is going to be driven by infrastructure or people or capabilities within the companies that are trying to connect.
Yeah. And is there any additional challenges that you see from your perspective?
Well, I mean, we see the same types of challenges where some of the more complex documents, just the upfront costs involved with some of our trading partners to implement them. And there's some hesitation. We'd like to see all of our distributors able to receive our pricing files, but there's a little bit of I don't know if there's challenges on their side or if there's staffing issues or anything like that, but they're slow to implement some of the more complex documents like pricing files or rebate chargebacks, things like that. Most of our trading partners are already implemented for purchase orders, invoices, things like, trading those types of documents, but getting them to move into the other ones, there's obviously some challenges on their side. And maybe just doing implementing more standardized processes could help the trading partners move those documents along. So we kind of see the same things.
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, in the early 80s, when EDI was gaining some adoption, that, companies at times would provide incentives for more adoption. And I'm not sure many companies are doing that anymore, but there is obviously savings to be had by increasing, the number of transactions that companies are doing with their partners. Let's turn to a little bit more now about technology integration and standards evolution. And a lot of discussion today about APIs and blockchain and predictive analytics and how standards need to evolve to achieve supply chain transformation. Phil, how do you think modern EDI standards like EDI Pro simplify the implementation process compared to traditional standards like ANSI X12?
I think, again, as the needs of manufacturers and distributors and the end users evolve, we have to keep, updating those standards to meet the business needs. And so for us, it's continually working with NAD, IDEA, and the manufacturers to figure out, what we can do to streamline the process. Because again, it's all about removing the friction in the channel. And for us, if we can eliminate errors, because we obviously have errors in our data, and be able to use the EDI transactions to minimize that, it helps both sides. So for us, it's, when you say the newer technology, for me, it's getting the EDI transactions processed quicker. Because back in the day, when you had a van and it'd take 2 or 3 days to pick up, and send an acknowledgement back that you received the document, well, those days are gone. So the technology has changed to the point now, especially with the connectivity means even with EDI, it can be as fast as API. Really, you can post an 850 and get a response back immediately with anything that's incorrect on the PO, which is huge. So it's really just us keep pushing the envelope and, making sure that we are all using the right tools to handle the EDI transactions as efficiently as possible. That's, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's where we are. The EDI is here to stay. And I think the standards that you'll see in those transactions will also bleed over into the API side. So we're already working with a number of manufacturers and customers doing APIs, but that's, those go beyond, what we're doing with EDI today.
Yeah. Scott, can you share any specific examples from your experience of where this simplification has been beneficial, with you and your trading partners?
Yeah, absolutely. Just one step back on you mentioned the incentives, and in some ways that's where we started. I think the value payback, the cost benefit of automation is so clear to people. The incentives aren't needed anymore. It's just, hey, let's displace this labor and do things that are valuable and move forward with things like innovation and better customer experience. When it comes to some of the things that we've implemented and the concepts of API and AI, there's value in API, there's value in AI, and there's value in a lot of different means of connecting to our customers. And those things will all need to progress and move forward. And the reality, though, is we have a pretty stable industry with organizations like NEMA and IDEA and NAD, and we have a standard base that we've started with EDI that works well, that it cannot be optimized and improved and make us all a little more efficient. I think we want to build on that. We at Legrand, a lot of our order volume, our order acknowledgement volume, our rebate volume is transacted via EDI. We're probably, including all of our trading partners, heading towards 50% across all of our electrical businesses. There is incredible benefits and value and efficiencies in that we want to continue to improve on. Where we struggle a little bit is the one-offs or the things we don't have transactions set up for. But where we use it in those certain areas and where we optimize it, it's a great benefit to us, and that's what we want to keep working on.
That's great. And what role do you see in EDI Pro and JSON-based formats playing in the modernization of EDI data exchanges, particularly when transitioning from some of the older legacy systems?
Well, I mean, at Siemens, we've used the EDI Pro standards kind of as our framework for all of our mapping. So we started with the Pro standards, and then so it's more of a seamless onboarding for the customers, as we can use this standardized mapping and then make modifications as needed based on the customer's requirements. So, I mean, I see it as going forward with, implementing more standards for other transaction sets and just kind of the same framework. That's how I see it in the future. It just helps in the seamless onboarding of trading partners, and it increases efficiency and the timeliness to do the onboarding. So that's how it's helped us.
Yeah, it's the speed to market that, we talk about with, in all
Right.
aspects of the business. Tom, have you, from your perspective, seen the improvement that modern formats have increased speed and accuracy and in the data transfer that we observe going through the network?
Yeah, I mean, and actually when I kind of drop back to the initial part of the question with like EDI Pro versus JSON, I mean, your EDI Pro is X12, right? And that's going to be your standard workhorse. If everybody's doing it, it's doing EDI. But you do hear a lot with the APIs. Now, X12 can be used with APIs. However, it's not the best format. Whereas when you're looking at JSON, that is really designed for JSON, XML. Those work fantastically with APIs. So where I see this, playing out with the modernization of EDI is you're going to have both going forward. You'll have your workhorse X12 documents, so you'll be placing orders, you'll be getting your invoice, but you'll use your APIs to go get inventory availability, to get current pricing. So by updating your system with APIs, then your traditional EDI transaction sets will then work more efficiently. So that's really where I see this is going to grow. I don't think APIs will eliminate X12, EDI. They're going to work synergistically with each other.
So they sort of complement one another, and
Correct.
each serves a vital role. Phil, how do you think EDI could evolve to provide, better handling of complex processes unique to what we see in the electrical industry, such as like price quotes and project quotes?
For us, I think, and I agree about the APIs complementing EDI, but EDI will need to continue to evolve. Everything from, for example, for us dealing with special built items. It's one thing to have a stock item with a UPC number. It's another for businesses to communicate, items that are custom built or items that are one-offs, items that are broken packages. So there's a lot of transactions that are very difficult for us today with the standards that we have to communicate. And basically we're doing that with workarounds. So I think as the standards evolve, it will help streamline that process and take the errors out of the equation, and also eliminate going through other means of communicating those transactions. So I think that, again, it's just updating the standards and working on the communication means to make them as fast as possible. Not that you can beat API speeds, but at least take the time out of the equation as much as possible, because time in a document can inherently have errors in it, because just because you think that the manufacturer has stock on it, you place it, or maybe an item has the right part number on it, but now it's been obsolete or whatever, things change. So the quicker you get it in the system and the quicker you get a status back and you can address any errors, the quicker that you can handle whatever it is with the customers, which is what ultimately we all want. So that for me, it's the standards and the tools for communicating those documents. As long as the technology improves there, an idea working with NAD, NEMA, and the manufacturing distributors to work on the transactions to figure out, hey, with an invoice, this is what we have today. This is really where we need to move forward. With the SBA process, I mean, we went through a lot of work on the ability to file for SBAs and get the rebates, approve the credits back in so many days. And as an industry, we really haven't moved forward with that process. Well, we haven't gone back to review that. I mean, it was a great concept, and a lot of people, including us, signed off on it. And as of today, we haven't made that step. And I think just revisiting it and having people to come together and figure out where first the low-hanging fruit is, and then where the longer-term pain points are in some of the more complex documents, and working through it. And I think as we communicate that, and then the software, people, whether it's SAP, Epic, or Infor, whoever it is, and start adopting those to include the extra data points, I think it's only going to improve, but we have to keep pushing it forward. I think what's happened over the years is we've let EDI kind of plateau. And then, as an industry, we have all these additional needs. So we're trying to figure out how to work around it instead of taking EDI and doing an upgrade. And I think if we do that, EDI will continue to improve. And that's what we need to do, is we need to keep pushing it forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation.
I just want to add something to that. IDEA is working on creating an API standard. So that should be coming at not too far away, where you'll have an industry-based API solution. So that should help facilitate the adoption of a standardized API methodology across the channel. Sorry, Mike, I didn't cut you off.
No, that's okay. That's great. Scott, do you see any ways that you're thinking of where EDI could evolve to, handle more complex processes that maybe are being handled the old-fashioned way today?
Possibly. I see EDI as the high volume, high transaction set areas. There's always going to be a long tail of one-offs, and I think that's where you use some newer technologies, whether it's API or other ways to connect. I think where the committee here is focused is there's more that can be done on high volume, and I think that's what we want to extend on, and it's the industry that needs to drive it. I would even say EDI probably isn't the most entertaining topic in the world, but there is an urgency in some ways for for our industry. In my mind, the electrical wholesale channel and the electrical manufacturers, we have risks, more risks than ever before in our industry, and we need to keep up. And one of the risks we have is digitally. There's more online competitors than ever before, and they're doing things faster, and they quite honestly have more robust and stronger IT organizations and IT platforms in some respects. So it's a really important topic, and finding the volume areas for EDI to extend, I think, are key. And then I think Phil hit it. I think others hit it. Finding the one-offs for other types of technology to service, whether it's API or AI or other solutions. I think there's an urgency there for all of us to talk about this topic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, you talked about. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, to add to that, I agree. I think you need to avoid the one-offs, but just in the opportunities of SPAs, rebates, especially into your programs, additions to point of sales, point of transfers to make sure regional reps are compensated correctly, and moving products, especially for larger distributors that may have different, cost centers in different parts of the U.S. Changes to handle, errors. That we get an invoice and we decide that's not correct. How do we communicate that back to the manufacturer so that their system is able to reconcile on the receivables that Elliot's paying this, but there's still a discrepancy here that they don't agree with, instead of having that offline. Those to me are not really one-offs there, but that stack is just getting bigger and bigger. So while we're doing 86% of our invoices EDI, that delta difference, as we get bigger, it becomes a bigger number. And, to me, that's still a huge opportunity for both sides to save millions for me, if I can just figure out how to work on that top, 14%. If I can keep working that down, not that we'll ever get to 100%, but I think there is a lot of opportunities there. But it's going to take everybody in the channel to work together to figure out how we can to migrate, add documents or whatever to streamline those processes so that EDI can handle that, versus people getting on the websites, sending emails, PDF documents going all over the place, or worse yet, paper coming in the email or in the mail. And that's just, it's a huge problem. And I still see a lot of opportunity that we can do to address some of those issues with EDI.
We've done some things at Siemens to complement EDI with other technologies like RPA, robotics type of notification internally of like pricing errors on EDI purchase orders, things like that. So there's room, I agree, there's definitely room for improvement to use other technologies to kind of complement the EDI processes.
Well, and hopefully this session, this roundtable will maybe get people reinvigorated to push a little bit further ahead. Scott touched on security and risk, and I want to turn now to talk a little bit about, the data management security that we're all, focused on. And, as a company, we want to make sure that all of our digital transactions that go through any kind of exchange are secure. So, and back to you, how do you manage security concerns around digital transactions related to EDI?
Well, that's another team. So, but we do definitely have security team in place that monitors. I mean, obviously with EDI to secure transaction between the vans, but we do use AS2 communication directly with some of our trading partners. So we have secured servers to do those types of processing. So we definitely have security in place to handle any kind of communication protocol.
Scott, how about at Legrand?
Security is a big deal. And Legrand's been impacted, the wholesale channel's been impacted, other manufacturers have been impacted. Our cybersecurity efforts, we didn't have those 20, 30 years ago when we started using email and every other form of communication. And it's probably one of our IT organization's main focuses, and we have our own team that's dedicated to it. And to the earlier points, there's there's dedicated servers, there's security platforms in place, there's communication protocols. So a lot of effort there. The risk of security and a default to an organization, or worse yet, one of our customers is something we have to avoid. So putting a lot of effort and energy behind that. The more data we pass, the more diligent we have to be.
Yeah. Phil, I don't know if you're at Elliott dealing with a lot of web portals where suppliers that don't support EDI. Do you run into some web portals where they're asking you go kind of enter your own data rather than taking an EDI exchange? And how do you deal with that if you do?
Yeah, we try to work with the supplier and motivate them to go EDI. If not, then as others mentioned, we use tools like bots that can automate that process, and really for us it's like an API, but it's actually interfacing with a portal to place the order online. So worst case, that's what we do, but there are tools that automate that, so we don't have to have people sitting there. Although with the customer side, we do have, unfortunately, there's some sites that are more sophisticated that fight the bot process. So we do have, unfortunately, some teams that still have to deal with portals that we could be using EDI with, and we are working with those organizations, but they're for our customers, so that is a challenge at times. But anyway, on the supplier side, it's a little bit easier. But normally, if we can't do it with EDI, then we have bots that place the orders for us.
Okay. Tom, I know you're familiar with a lot of web portals, and we have worked with companies that prefer to go that way. Do you have anything to add about real-time exchange versus going to web portals?
Just going off of what Phil said, there are solutions around it. As Phil said, you have a bot. You can even create like a CSV file that they could be set with a cron job and then uploaded to that portal as well. So ideally, yeah, if you would go with an automated solution like an EDI, but if they can't do it, then their customer trading partner, you can get around it. I mean, I think it kind of opens up to the other topic of security, because you've created another vulnerability or another hop with the data. So I mean, at all costs, it should be worked around if possible, but it's going to be there, so we have to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, let's turn to talk a little bit with the time we have left about EDI, the future of EDI, and some of the digital supply chains. And what advice would you give to organizations just starting out on an EDI journey to maximize, their benefit or the strategic impact?
I mean, for Siemens, we're fully committed to digitalization, and EDI is an integral part in that journey. And I think that, for a new organization, just to invest in EDI, I don't think it's going away. I mean, we see growth in it as an organization. We're constantly onboarding new trading partners. So I think just investing in the process and it increases the collaboration across the supply chain. So I think that's the best advice.
Yeah. Yeah, and as the industry exchange, we see obviously peaks and valleys, but year over year, we see continuous growth. Now, some of that is just industry growth, which is good that we have that. But also, we see more and more transactions. Some of that may be coming from some of the consolidation that's going on where, some of the smaller distributors are being acquired by larger distributors that have more capability. But Scott, let me ask you about that. What advice would you have to offer?
It might sound simple, but I think just communication. In the fall, we go to a lot of trade shows and meetings with customers, and the best thing we ever get is data from our customers telling us how we're performing for them. And a lot of times the data explains how we're performing them in terms of EDI transactions and connectivity. So that's one way that we can talk to our customers and review our own processes to make sure we're doing the best we can to optimize the volume and the processes. I think the other part of communication for us at Legrand is the IT organizations are running fast in many ways. They're developing new solutions and keeping systems running. Sometimes talking to customers and getting processes set up and completed to make connections is not always their bailiwick. So making sure that we're communicating and moving customers along the continuum to make more connectivity is a critical step for us here at Legrand. So it sounds pretty simple, but just communicating and make sure we're optimizing what we have is a great first step to doing better in the industry relative to EDI transactions.
Yeah. And Phil, since on the distributor side, you've been there since the beginning of almost any kind of automation at Elliott. What lessons have you learned that you could pass along to maybe a smaller distributor starting out?
Well, I know that, starting out, there's always, there's cost and there's a lot of complex terms and things that, to the technology itself that people may shy away from, but the return on the investment is huge, especially as you grow. So even being a small distributor or even a new distributor, large distributor that's coming online, I think that, as was said earlier, it's a given. It might as well, if you're going to buy an ERP system, EDI has got to be a piece of it because it's not going away. The amount of EDI volume-wise is going to continue to grow. And I think that as the standards are updated and additional documents are added, that it's going to only enhance the productivity of organizations communicating with each other. So, the return is no-brainer. I think that if they look at it and they see the price tag of doing EDI and they think, oh my gosh, is this worth it? Well, it's kind of like in the warehouse. Are you going to use barcode wands? Are you going to use tablets? Do we need delivery trucks? This is just another one of those things that it's a must-have. It's not should we have, it's a must-have. And, if you look at what the cost of people doing things manually versus what EDI can handle for you, I think anybody, put some math to it real quick and see that EDI is a very strong investment.
Yeah.
In the
early days of automation, one of the things that people used to talk about was the cost of adopting even an ERP system. And we used to say, well, what does it cost to have an entry-level person in the warehouse? And the good thing about automation is that once you make that investment, there's no sick days. They always show up on time, and there's a lot of savings to be had once you make that investment.
That is correct.
Let's turn to kind of wrapping up a little bit here. That I'd like each of you to talk about, any ideas that you have that would contribute to advancing EDI for the industry. Ann, why don't you take that one?
That's a tough one. So some of the ideas I have would be, again, go back into the standardize, improving the standards. I think that just for me is understanding some of the challenges that some of our trading partners might have with implementing some of the documents. I think if we had an understanding of that, then maybe we could all work together to try to, broaden our portfolio of EDI documents. I think that's a way to improve it.
Scott?
Yeah, so I don't want to steal that one. I will add to that. Just adding, and this would be at the industry level, adding transaction sets will help us all. Take the next big volume one. I love where Phil was at with SPA management and pricing. That may be a good area for a company like Legrand or other manufacturers or wholesale channel. But that's kind of cheating to take that one because we talked about that enough. I think the other part of it is, you talk about, new entrants to the market and trying to show the value of why this is important. I think that, and there's not a lot of information in white papers and documents about EDI. We take it for granted a little bit about digital transaction. I think helping to tell the story of why, if you're entering the market or you're trying to show value to all of our end customers, contractors, and end users, you're not going to show value as a company, whether you're an electrical distributor or a manufacturer, by entering data. You're going to show value by innovating, by providing services, providing benefits, and you have to make this automated in order to get your resources to do those value-added services. And I think we have to tell that story as an industry better, because I think some of the other industries out there do a better job with that than we actually do. And I think we have the ability. I think the groups and the organizations like IDEA and NEMA and NEMRA and NAD are out there, and I think they have the ability to come together and tell that story better. And I think we will do that. So I'm eager to see how it progresses.
Yeah. I think we've been fortunate in the electrical industry that we had such an early adoption of EDI, and we've, as an industry, compared to some of the adjacent industries, I think we've been ahead of the curve. And I think we get distracted sometimes with the latest shiny new technology, and we don't max out or maximize, the technology that we already have in place. And Tom, I was wondering if you'd want to talk a little bit about, some of IDEA's efforts to, work with experts to define new standards.
Well, I mean, that would be all part with, the standards committee, as we come across challenges within the industry. If those could be brought to IDEA's attention, and then we would then be able to work with the, both sides. Is this between the distributor and a manufacturer? Is it having to do with just the rebate side? There's where you're going to be able to kind of get that thing growing and moving what needs to be added to the transaction sets for EDI Pro, what new ones, RGAs I heard was another one that was coming up. So that's where I see that part. But I do also want to add a little bit to the future EDI. If you've made the investment into your EDI system, you really should use it with everybody. And that entails reaching out to your trading partners, even the ones that said no. Don't give up on it. Just keep reaching out to them, get them going, and see what other transactions they could support. I mean, I've seen numerous examples of somebody putting in an EDI system, having that capital expenditure, and doing 850s and 810s, so POs and invoices. What about all the other ones that you could do? Then they set up 5 of their top trading partners, and then they stop. They never go to the other 30 or 40 of them that could then add incremental value. So I think just doing that will make it more value add to the EDI user, and it will help grow and propel that into the electrical industry. So further growth will be seen. You'll see all that, year over year, organic growth, more transactions, more volume. People will then start really seeing that it isn't maybe that expensive after all, because they're able to eliminate so many other time-intensive tasks by adding this automation.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I think it is. It's truly a community that we have in the electrical industry. And I think the trading partners, realize that, by working together, they can make each other more efficient, more profitable, and more secure. And these EDI trading relationships, strengthen the partnership between the supplier and the distributor. I really want to thank our participants today. We're going to turn to a question and answer session, but Phil, thank you for joining Ann, Scott, and Tom. And I appreciate everyone's attention to this roundtable on EDI and the future of EDI. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Fun.
I think we're live again here for the roundtable.
Great. Okay, so a couple of questions that came through here. You want me to start teeing them up there, Mike?
Yeah, that sounds great, Jim. Thanks.
Okay. So we got a question. Well, let's start off with this one. Is EDI only for large companies?
Anybody want to take? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Phil.
I mean, I'll take that one. I would say it's for all companies. I mean, I know, um, we started using EDI back in the mid '80s, and we were substantially smaller than we are today. And I think this is for every organization. It just really depends on, again, the pain of handling those transactions manually versus, automating them. So if you want to take errors and inefficiencies out of the channel for the partner as well as for your own company, then I think if you do the math, you'll see EDI is very beneficial.
Phil, I
do
know
you
that.
think that
Oh, why don't you go ahead,
Right.
Tom? Yep.
I was going to say, do you think that your adopting EDI so early on helped Elliott grow to the size and number of branches that you have today?
Absolutely. It definitely helped us keep our expenses down, and it also helped us justify to our trading partners that we were able to transmit, transactions with fewer errors. And if we had errors, then we were able to address those, whether it was on their side or our side. And that way, future transactions were error-free. So absolutely, it's one thing for a small company to try to keep expenses down, but the other thing is to show your trading partners that you can transact POs, invoices, or whatever, and help them keep their expenses low as well. So it helps everybody in the channel, as I've always said, reduce friction. And I think using EDI is one tool for reducing friction in the channel.
Phil, I was curious. I know with Elliott, a lot of the growth, big branch expansion program over the past couple of years. When you do open up new branches, do you have an EDI training program for the new employees, or do you have a EDI czar, so to speak, that gets the new location ready to go, or is it something you might be able to share with us?
For us, the EDI is really handled behind the scenes. So we can add new locations, and in our system, the ERP system, when they want to send a purchase order, when they send it, we just have the opportunity by default to send it electronically. So to, all the users, they don't have to understand the inner workings of EDI, what it is, and how it gets there. It's handled for them automatically. So, most users nowadays understand how email works, and they understand that EDI is even more efficient and secure than the average email. So that it's an automated process, and we insulate that, the details, so to speak, from the users.
All righty. How about for companies that are on the fence about EDI, and what quick wins or advantages would you highlight to demonstrate in this value? That's a question for the general panel here.
Scott, I think you're on mute if you can hear me. In the bottom right, there's a button.
My apologies. It hit on me a little bit. So yeah, I'll take that. I think on the fence about EDI is probably a tough one, because it's like motherhood and apple pie. It's all good. It's efficiency and it's productivity and it's value. I think the challenge is, do you have the scope and the bandwidth to, and this sometimes comes to the smaller companies, to institute and work on the IT processes that put it in place. I think the beauty of the industry, whether it's IDEA or the manufacturers, is there's resources out there to help you integrate and engage and support and learn and develop and do more EDI. And the benefit, I hopefully we displayed enough in the last 45 minutes of efficiency and moving to value add services is clear. So it's just a matter of being able to do it more and broader, I think.
Yeah, I'll add to that real quick, because I think you hit the nail on the head. For a small company, sometimes you don't have the resources or the technical resources to handle EDI. But IDEA obviously has a managed services option, which can, supplement that and allows you to, offload that, outsource it, so to speak. And that way you can continue running the business, but they assist you with the technical details to get EDI working behind the scenes. So it's a win-win.
We've got a question that came in from Nate Plant with LAPP. It says, I'm curious from both a supplier and a distributor standpoint, what are best practices for implementing EDI for wire and cable products or other products that are or could be ordered in different non-standard lengths?
For us, most of our wire purchases for stock is in standard real lengths, and for the manufacturers we support, we have their item numbers and UPC numbers loaded on the system. So when you select a supplier, those numbers are used for the inventory that you're wanting to order. And when the PO is sent out, we send, basically we have our part number, their part number, and the UPC number that's assigned to their products. So that's typically how we do it. For custom cuts, the EDI does support being able to send items without UPC codes in a way. We've had workarounds with that in the past, but sometimes those are better handled offline. But I would say the average item for pipe and wire, we haven't had a problem sending those via EDI.
We're getting quite a good selection of questions coming in. See? This is from Jose Romero from manufacturer Orbit Industries. And Jose asks, this is the first time I'm hearing about a modern EDI. What are those modern standards? I'm assuming he means was there some new standards on EDI that maybe our listeners today should know something about?
I'll take that one. And essentially, what we're looking at is just the progression and the growth of your normal EDI, your X12. You went with XML for other various reasons, and you're now doing APIs. But it's just how you're using your EDI transactions. In the past, you would have had maybe 3 or 4 transactions that everybody did, but there's 900 in the X12 book. So now people are looking at those other 900, and they're starting to implement them and finding that they're getting additional efficiencies and value by automating some processes that they may have thought that they could not automate in the past.
Yeah, I would agree with that. To add a little extra to that, when you started off, most distributors thought, oh, okay, we have a PO and an invoice. And, every manufacturer and every partner that you dealt with was different. And to a certain point, IDEA came out with the standards and they said, oh, okay, well, how about we come up with a standard that works for the electrical industry? And that's where the EDI Pro came from. And that was the next step, huge step for doing EDI transactions. Well, today, really we're at the stepping point of needing that next step, which is, the modernize is not only existing transactions, but enhancing those. So, for example, we do a lot with SPAs, but there's extra things that manufacturers need and distributors need to cut out the potential errors to handle processing and loading them correctly. And the same thing for invoices, point of sale, point of transfer. Those are all additional transactions, but they need additional information. So as technology change, as business change, we really need to make sure we keep the standards updating, modernize it, so to speak. And absolutely, we need to continue to add new documents.
Got a question here from Miles Wojciak from Aero USA. Says, how important is EDI for new suppliers, possibly smaller suppliers, or maybe suppliers that are new to the electrical channel?
I'll take this one real quick, but as a distributor, if you want to reduce friction, you want to use EDI. It's nothing worse than for a distributor to deal with hundreds or thousands of paper or PDF emails and we have services that can deal with those. But for us, we're looking for partners to help cut costs. We want to make our manufacturer partner profitable, and we need to be profitable. To do that, you have to cut costs out of the channel. If you're not using EDI and you're requiring your team and your distributor partner teams to do things manually or deal with errors and exceptions, that's cutting into your profits. So I can't see why you wouldn't use EDI or APIs or anything else to help automate transactions up and down the supply chain.
Yeah, I'll support that from a manufacturer's perspective. Is there's a customer experience angle on this, right? And I think you just heard it. You're going to be providing a better customer experience to your channel partners. when you have an easier digital transaction set and a more efficient set. So that's pretty valuable customer experience, and it's something that probably would be a benefit for any manufacturer, large, small, or startup.
Yeah, and from a supplier perspective, I mean, we have EDI fully integrated into the whole supply chain, from procurement of the materials for manufacturing to the transportation messages with the carrier, real-time milestone statuses, all the way to receiving the purchase order from a customer to invoicing and then remitting from the bank. So the whole supply chain from beginning to end is fully integrated with EDI. It's an integral part of our processing. So, I mean, I think the whole thing would come to a halt if anything, if we shut down the EDI processing. So with efficiency and error reduction and cost reduction, all that's, we see the benefits with that.
There's a question for Scott, and I think Ann too, possibly. It's one from Rock Kuchermeister from KE Electric Supply Corp. And he asks, when you take on a new perhaps acquire a new company, when can you anticipate EDI to begin with those divisions? How long? I guess basically, how long does it take that you can get a company up and running on EDI, have a new division, new product line, so to speak?
Yeah, I'll go first, and then as you know, Legrand makes plenty of acquisitions, and I hate when somebody asks a question and the answer is always depends. But there is an impact of our own internal IT organizations. When we make acquisitions, they come with normally their own ERP systems, and how those ERP systems are supported, depending on the acquisition, they could already be all set with EDI transactions, or maybe we need to work on them and develop them. But the timeline isn't long, and it's our job as a manufacturer to find a way to communicate to our customer base and let you know when we're ready. Currently for Legrand, I can tell you that in the electrical division, the big brands that we offer, we're following all the EDI transaction sets and have capabilities to help any customers to get engaged and support them. So.
I mean, it's similar for Siemens. It depends on how quickly the new acquisition is integrated into our SAP system, and sometimes we acquire companies that already have EDI enabled, but generally it depends on how quickly they integrate into our SAP.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of SAP, we've got a question from Gary Patterson, Powerline Supply / the Oaknight Company. It says, I have SAP customers that are concerned about security and are very resistant to ASNs. How have you overcome this?
I mean, we transmit through our value-added network, and that's pretty secure. As far as the transmission, the security, is that what the concern is?
I don't know. Let's just kind of read this straight. Yeah.
I think whether one is if you go through a van, that will take care of the security concern. But a lot of EDI is transacted with the AS2 connections. So you can do AS2 connections direct to your trading partner, and that connectivity has security built into it. So, that's the nice thing about EDI and the tools that you use to transmit and receive. They already have a lot of security built into place.
And I think we talked about that earlier. It's good that our customers are concerned about security, cybersecurity especially, and there are protocols like VANs and other solutions in place that will protect the manufacturer and the channel partner. That is probably, I can speak for Legrand and I'm sure the other manufacturers and distributor partners. It's one of the biggest concerns is cybersecurity, because that is a risk that none of us want to have to be challenged with.
I think we have time for one more question in the live, and I'm sure any of you folks that have answered a question that we don't get to in the live version, we will be able to get to. And I found this one to be interesting, so I'm going to give it a shot. And this is from Kevin Nicholas, Lone Star Electric Supply. He says, do you see integration partners like Remark Cable and Kojo playing a bigger role into the ease of EDI adoption from a usability and functionality standpoint?
Yes. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. And we're already, working with Kojo and Remarkable and all the others. So it varies. Some are hybrid with EDI and APIs. Some are API only. It really just depends on the package that the customers are using and what they would like to do. We have some customers, for example, that require punch out. So, I mean, EDI is just another tool, but for your heavy hitter, if you have a lot of data you're dealing with and dealing with your block and tackle type of transactions, I think it's the way to go. But depending on the customer and the package, some are using it, some are using a combination of that and other tools.
Great. I think that's about all the time we have for questions today. Unfortunately, we do have a few more, and we will get to them. I want to thank our panel today for being on. I want to thank the many, many people that came on to listen to the webinar today. So thanks, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.